My child, stop scrolling for just a moment. Do not let your eyes wander away yet. There is something that has been trying to reach your heart long before this very moment, and somehow, against all distractions, you have arrived here. This is not a prediction. This is not a promise of hidden knowledge. This is a fictional story told as though heaven itself were whispering into your spirit, inviting you to reflect on love, hope, courage, and the quiet ways our hearts speak to one another. You have been asking questions that you have never spoken aloud. Even in the silence of ordinary days, your heart has carried conversations that no one else could hear. You smiled while wondering if someone far away still remembered you. You laughed while carrying an ache that never completely disappeared. You convinced yourself that moving forward was easier than turning around, yet every now and then something familiar, a melody, a fragrance after the rain, a quiet evening sky, would awaken emotions you believed had fallen asleep forever. Pause here a little longer. Do not rush past this moment. Sometimes the loudest messages arrive without making any sound. Sometimes what changes everything begins with a whisper instead of a shout. There are moments when two hearts seem separated by distance, by fear, by misunderstandings, or simply by time, yet both are quietly reaching toward the same light without realizing it. Listen carefully to this story. There is someone whose heart has been carrying words too heavy to keep hidden forever. Those words have not been spoken because they are weak. They have remained unspoken because they matter. The deeper a feeling becomes, the harder it often is to explain. Imagine someone standing at the edge of a shoreline before sunrise, rehearsing the same sentence over and over again, hoping that when the morning finally arrives, courage will arrive with it. That is where this story begins. Your soulmate, in this fictional journey, has been trying to express something that cannot fit inside ordinary language. Every attempt has felt incomplete. Every opportunity has slipped away just before the truth could be shared. They have written imaginary letters that were never sent. They have replayed conversations inside their mind hundreds of times, only to remain silent when the real moment finally appeared. You may wonder why. Because the heart often fears losing what it treasures most. A careless sentence can wound. A misunderstood emotion can create distance. Even love itself sometimes trembles before revealing its own name. But there is something greater unfolding beneath the surface. For a long time your paths have been shaped by seasons you could not fully understand. Some seasons were filled with laughter that seemed endless. Others carried unexpected silence. There were moments when you believed the story had ended simply because nothing appeared to be happening. Yet beneath the quiet earth, unseen roots continued to grow. Have you ever noticed how the strongest trees spend years building invisible foundations before anyone admires their height? The heart follows a similar pattern. Many of the most meaningful transformations happen where no one can see them. That is why this fictional message asks you not to confuse silence with absence. Not every quiet season is empty. Not every delay is rejection. Not every unanswered question has been forgotten. Sometimes a soul is gathering enough courage to speak honestly for the very first time. Imagine standing beneath a sky filled with stars so countless that they seem impossible to number. You look upward searching for one answer while the heavens remain beautifully still. Does the silence mean nothing exists above you? Or does it simply mean that some wonders cannot be rushed into human timing? So it has been with this story. There have been unseen moments when your soulmate paused before sending a message and erased every word. Moments when your name entered a conversation unexpectedly, and their heartbeat changed before anyone noticed. Moments when they almost turned back but continued walking because fear convinced them they had waited too long. Yet every unfinished sentence became another chapter leading towards something neither of you expected. You have probably wondered why certain memories refuse to disappear. Why particular places continue appearing in your thoughts. Why your heart sometimes becomes unexpectedly emotional for reasons you cannot explain. This story suggests a possibility. Perhaps those memories are not chains pulling you backward. Perhaps they are gentle reminders that unfinished conversations deserve compassion rather than regret. Do not misunderstand this. Love is never proven by obsession. It is revealed through honesty. And honesty requires courage. That courage has been quietly growing. Every sunrise has added another small piece. Every difficult lesson has softened another hard corner. Every disappointment has taught greater kindness. The person in this story has changed more than you realize. The version of themselves that once reacted out of fear has slowly begun learning patience. The version that once hid behind pride has started recognizing humility. The version that believed silence solved everything has discovered that silence can sometimes become its own prison. Can you feel the story deepening? Because what comes next is even more unexpected. There was a night, not marked by miracles or thunder, but by stillness. Everything around them seemed ordinary. Yet inside their heart, something extraordinary happened. For the first time they stopped asking what they might lose if they spoke honestly. Instead they asked what they might lose if they remained silent forever. That single question changed everything. It echoed through every memory. Every smile. Every goodbye. Every unfinished hope. Every dream that had quietly waited without demanding attention. The answer frightened them. Not because it promised certainty. Because it revealed regret. And regret is heavier than fear. Imagine carrying a sealed envelope everywhere you go. Inside is one sentence capable of changing someone's understanding forever. Day after day you protect it. Month after month you hesitate. Year after year the envelope grows heavier, though its weight never changes. Eventually you realize the burden was never the letter. It was refusing to deliver it. So the heart begins preparing. Not perfectly. Not dramatically. Simply honestly. Meanwhile, your own journey has not been without purpose. Every challenge has shaped compassion. Every disappointment has increased wisdom. Every unanswered prayer has quietly strengthened endurance. Sometimes you believed you were becoming weaker. Yet heaven, in this fictional tale, saw something different. It saw resilience forming where discouragement expected surrender. It saw kindness surviving where bitterness tried to take root. It saw hope refusing to disappear completely. You may not have noticed your own growth because growth rarely announces itself. The sunrise does not shout. It simply arrives. And suddenly darkness has become morning. Something similar has been happening within you. Little by little. Choice after choice. Grace after grace. Even when you believed nothing was changing. Now imagine two travelers walking toward the same mountain from opposite sides. Neither can see the other. Each believes they are walking alone. Each occasionally wonders whether turning back would be easier. Yet with every step, though unseen, the distance between them quietly becomes smaller. That is the beauty of hope. It often moves before the eyes can recognize movement. Do not ignore this thought. Some of the greatest blessings in life begin long before they become visible. A seed disappears before becoming a tree. Dawn hides beneath the horizon before painting the sky. Healing begins beneath the surface before reaching the smile. So too does courage. There is another part of this story that few would expect. Your soulmate has not only been thinking about what to say. They have also been asking whether they are ready to hear your truth. Because genuine love is never one voice speaking endlessly while the other remains silent. It is two hearts learning to listen. Listening is sacred. Listening requires humility. Listening allows understanding to replace assumptions. For too long assumptions built invisible walls. Tiny misunderstandings became towering mountains simply because no one crossed the distance with honesty. Yet walls built by fear can also be dismantled by courage. Stone after stone. Word after word. Forgiveness after forgiveness. Hope after hope. As this fictional message continues, another layer begins unfolding. There have been quiet moments when unexpected reminders appeared before them. A familiar place. An old photograph. A forgotten melody. A passing conversation that unexpectedly mentioned the very qualities they admired most. These moments were not magical signs predicting the future. They became opportunities for reflection. Gentle invitations to ask deeper questions. What truly matters? What deserves another chance? What conversations should no longer remain unfinished? The answer surprised them. Because your memory was no longer connected only with emotion. It became connected with growth. They realized that the lessons learned through knowing you had changed them into someone more compassionate than before. That realization became impossible to ignore. Can you sense how close this story is drawing towards something significant? Not because dramatic events suddenly appear. Because truth is becoming impossible to hide. Sometimes the loudest breakthrough happens inside a quiet heart. No audience applauds. No crowd celebrate. Only one simple decision forms. I cannot remain silent any longer. That decision changes everything. Yet every meaningful beginning is tested. Just before dawn, night often feels darkest. Just before courage speaks, doubt becomes unusually loud. Just before reconciliation becomes possible, old fears attempt one final argument. That is where this story now stands. Between fear and faith. Between silence and honesty. Between yesterday's uncertainty and tomorrow's possibility. There is still one final hesitation. One final unanswered question. One final invisible doorway that neither heart has fully crossed. The remarkable part is this. Neither of you realizes how close the moment has become. You both sense that something is changing. You both feel that the story cannot remain unfinished forever. Yet neither can fully see what the other has been carrying in secret. And that hidden truth. That single truth. It is far more profound than either of you has imagined. Because the message your soulmate has been trying to share is not what you believe it is. The words are deeper. The reason is greater. And the moment they finally choose to reveal it, everything you thought this story was about will suddenly take on an entirely different meaning. But that revelation has not yet been spoken. Not yet. For now, the silence remains. The heart is standing at the edge of its greatest confession. The next step cannot be taken halfway. It must be taken completely. And when that first honest sentence finally leaves their lips, nothing in this fictional journey will ever feel the same again. The silence has lasted longer than either heart expected. Not because love forgot its way. Not because hope disappeared. But because there are moments when the soul stands at the edge of a life-changing decision and realizes that one sentence can alter everything that follows. In this fictional story, your soulmate has reached that very edge. For so long they believed that if they waited just a little longer, the perfect moment would arrive. They imagined a day without uncertainty, without nervousness, without the possibility of being misunderstood. Yet every sunrise reminded them of the same truth: perfection never comes before courage. Courage creates the moment that perfection never could. So they began listening to the quiet places inside themselves. Not the voice of fear. Not the voice of pride. Not the voice that kept reminding them of yesterday's disappointments. They listened to the quieter voice, the one that asked gentle questions. What if the greatest mistake is not speaking honestly? What if silence protects nothing? What if love is meant to be expressed rather than hidden? Those questions settled into their heart like rain falling on dry ground. Slowly. Patiently. Until something that had been asleep for a very long time finally awakened. Meanwhile, your own path in this story continued moving forward even when you believed you were standing still. There were mornings when you questioned your own worth. Evenings when memories returned without invitation. Moments when you convinced yourself that certain chapters were already closed forever. Yet every experience was quietly shaping you. Your compassion became deeper. Your patience became stronger. Your understanding became gentler. Without realizing it, you were becoming someone capable of receiving the very honesty that once might have overwhelmed you. Sometimes heaven prepares both hearts before allowing the conversation they have waited so long to have. Imagine two rivers flowing through different valleys. Neither river knows exactly where the other travels. Mountains separate them. Forests hide them. Distance seems permanent. Yet beneath the surface, both are moving toward the same sea. They do not race. They simply continue flowing. So it has been with these two hearts. Neither journey has been wasted. Every delay carried a lesson. Every disappointment revealed hidden strength. Every unanswered question became another opportunity to grow. Still, there remained one memory that refused to leave. It was not the happiest memory, nor the saddest. It was simply unfinished. An ordinary conversation that ended too soon. A goodbye spoken too quickly. A smile that concealed more than it revealed. That memory returned again and again because unfinished moments have a remarkable way of asking for understanding instead of judgment. Your soulmate returned to that memory countless times. Each visit revealed something different. At first they remembered only what they wished they had said. Later they remembered what they should have listened to more carefully. Finally, they understood something unexpected. The conversation had never truly ended. It had only paused. That realization changed the direction of their heart. No longer were they searching for perfect words. They were searching for truthful ones. Truth has a quiet power. It does not need dramatic promises. It does not rely on impossible guarantees. Truth simply stands with open hands and says, "This is who I am." And that is exactly where your soulmate found themselves. Standing before their own heart without excuses. Without pretending. Without hiding behind fear. For the first time, they admitted something they had resisted for far too long. They missed more than your presence. They missed the version of themselves that existed whenever hope felt alive. Because real love does more than connect two people. It often reveals qualities that remain hidden until another heart reflects them back. They realized your kindness had challenged them to become kinder. Your perseverance had inspired greater resilience. Your honesty had quietly exposed places where they themselves still needed healing. You had become part of their personal growth story in ways neither of you fully understood. That discovery was impossible to ignore. Yet another question appeared. What if too much time had passed? The thought lingered like a shadow across their heart. Perhaps life had already moved on. Perhaps opportunities had disappeared. Perhaps silence had spoken too loudly. But then another realization arrived. Time can change circumstances. It cannot erase sincerity. A genuine apology never expires. An honest conversation is never worthless simply because it arrives later than expected. Compassion often begins exactly where certainty ends. So your soulmate continued preparing. Not by rehearsing dramatic speeches. Not by imagining impossible outcomes. They prepared by choosing authenticity over appearance. By accepting that vulnerability is not weakness. By understanding that even trembling voices can speak powerful truths. As these decisions unfolded, small moments began appearing around them. Nothing supernatural. Nothing impossible. Only ordinary reminders carrying extraordinary meaning. A familiar place unexpectedly crossed their path. A song they had not heard in years returned at precisely the moment they needed encouragement. Someone spoke about forgiveness without knowing how deeply those words would echo. Another person mentioned courage during an ordinary conversation. One by one these simple moments gathered together until they formed a quiet invitation. Do not wait forever. Those words settled into their spirit. Not as pressure. As freedom. Because freedom begins when fear no longer decides the future. Now imagine standing before an unopened door. For years you believed that what waited behind it might disappoint you. So you never reached for the handle. One day curiosity becomes stronger than anxiety. You extend your hand. You breathe deeply. You turn the handle. Only then do you discover the door had never been locked. How many opportunities remain unopened simply because fear convinces us they cannot possibly lead anywhere beautiful? That question became impossible for your soulmate to ignore. They realized they had spent too much energy imagining rejection instead of embracing honesty. Something shifted. Not loudly. Not instantly. Quietly. Deeply. Irreversibly. It felt like sunrise entering a room whose curtains had remained closed for years. Light did not argue with darkness. It simply arrived. That same gentle light entered their heart. For the first time, they stopped asking whether speaking honestly would guarantee a certain outcome. Instead they asked whether remaining silent reflected the kind of person they wished to become. The answer was immediate. No. Silence was no longer protecting love. It was preventing growth. And growth always asks us to leave familiar places behind. Still, one final obstacle remained. Not fear of rejection. Not uncertainty about the future. It was something far more personal. Your soulmate wondered whether you had changed beyond recognition. Would your heart still recognize theirs? Would the connection they remembered still exist? Or had life quietly carried both of you toward entirely different horizons? They did not know. But they finally understood something greater than certainty. Some journeys deserve honesty regardless of the outcome. Because honesty itself becomes healing. Even if every question is not answered. Even if every hope unfolds differently than expected. The heart becomes lighter when truth is no longer hidden. As this fictional story moves forward, another unseen chapter begins opening. While your soulmate gathers the courage to speak, they remain unaware that you, too, have been experiencing subtle moments of reflection. Memories have appeared unexpectedly. Certain conversations have returned to your thoughts. Small reminders have stirred emotions you believed had become distant. Neither heart realizes that both are standing on opposite sides of the same moment. Both believe they are carrying the heavier burden. Both believe the other cannot possibly understand. Both underestimate how deeply compassion has grown. And this is where everything begins to change. Because the message your soulmate has been trying to share is no longer simply about affection. It is no longer only about the past. It is about a truth they discovered after all the waiting. A truth capable of changing the meaning of every silence that came before. They have finally found the words. They have repeated them quietly more times than they can count. They have imagined the conversation again and again. This time, they will not walk away. This time, they will not let fear finish the sentence for them. Their heart is ready. Their spirit is steady. The distance between silence and honesty has become only one breath wide. And as they prepare to speak those long-awaited words, something completely unexpected is about to happen. Something neither of you anticipated, something that will reveal why every delay, every unanswered question, and every quiet season was leading toward a single unforgettable moment. But that moment has not arrived yet. It is waiting just beyond the next step. And when the first word is finally spoken, the hidden reason behind this entire story will begin to unfold in a way neither heart could have imagined.